Hi, I'm Anaiis. You may or may not be familiar with my face. Let's talk about 2019. Let's talk about the life that you're living. Let's talk about whether or not you are feeling helpless, hopeless, trapped, whether you're feeling there are some possibilities in your life, new possibilities that you're able to feel you have an opportunity to create some new things in your life that will make you happy and that will contribute to your health. In order to have that conversation, we have to talk about fear. We are waking up globally, and part of waking up absolutely implies that there are fears, doubts, concerns, worries that we have to really look at straight on. We can't afford to be in denial. We can't afford to go into depression. Those are all escape mechanisms for not being willing or able to face a painful truth. So if you're experiencing anxiety, depression, a sense of being overwhelmed and out of control in your daily life, it's because there are some difficult truths that you haven't been able yet to find the courage to face. The fear around those issues is keeping you paralyzed or pushing you backwards into dynamics that are not healthy for you and that are not going to have you be in a happy, peaceful state, experiencing your organic birthright as a human being. So what do we do about the fear? I can only share with you what I've learned over many, many years of facing wave after wave after wave after wave of fear patterns in my own life. And I began fairly early with this process, which is a way of living. It's a lifestyle for me to move directly towards what I'm afraid of and to be curious about it. I had to face the fear of death when I was 23. So that's a pretty big fear for a lot of people. Then I had to face a number of fears which were related to what major life choices I was making, including partner, vocation, what I was going to do in the world, what I was suited to do. Then I had to face the fear of, what if I dare to be my authentic self? That's a big fear for a lot of us because we're so conditioned to never open that gift box. For many people, it takes coming very close to death or having a near-death experience to open the gift box, which seems pretty extreme if you ask me. So in the workshops that I offer, in the teaching method and process that I use, from wisdom body to conscious co-creation masterclass, conscious co-creation catalyst, and in the work that I've done in my certification programs that have to do with really life mastery, one of the keys to moving forward, to experiencing your deepest core, most authentic self, requires that you will have to have a relationship with your fears. Having a relationship with your fears means you feel them. You feel the fear. You sit down and you face it and you unpack it and you look at every aspect of it and you feel how having a particular set of fears, or a couple of very primal fears, how does your body feel? What are the biochemical processes that you put yourself through that are really quite destructive? Your physical body. How do you open your eyes and face your fear, and in unpacking it, ask a very simple question: where did this fear come from? And get an answer, because you're no longer afraid of the fear. We've heard people talk about fear of the fear and being afraid of the pain of feeling the pain, and those are all real dynamics, but they're all dynamics that are about looping. They're dynamics that reflect that we don't have enough authentic personal power to stop our own looping patterns. We don't have enough authentic personal power to sit down and look in a mirror with pen and paper in hand and really list the things we're most afraid of. Physically, emotionally. There are lots and lots of things that human beings have been conditioned to be afraid of. When we do that, we begin to open the door to freedom. At this point, in terms of the human condition, most people are still quite literally owned by fear. Owned by fear. In my life, I have taken the time to do a lot of deep work every day. Yeah. About the nature of my own sovereignty. And being a woman and being a person of color, that's a very specific set of questions. And a lot of those questions do revolve around ownership. Who owns my sexuality? Who owns and controls my body? Who owns and controls the money in a relationship? There are lots of ways that we need to look at how have we been placed in a looping cycle of fear. And as we unpack the fears, what I have found to be generally true is that we have physical, mental, emotional fear states. And we also have fear states around spirituality, and sometimes that gets channeled through the activity of religion. And sometimes religions themselves are generators of very powerful and profound fear states. One of the primary fear states that we really do have to work very hard to come into a relationship is opening our eyes to abuse, how we abuse others. Sometimes today it's called narcissism, how we disregard another person's being, disregard any of their needs, disregard their feelings, never inquire into who they are and what their desires and goals and talents and gifts are. So there's a lot of discovery. And I would suggest to you, now that we're in a time when there's a tremendous fear trigger being pushed around climate change, and that this world may, one of the options, if we're not willing to really face our fear directly and take responsibility that we would prefer not to have to take. Will we kill the ability of this incredibly beautiful planet to be a host for life, let alone a host for human beings? This is very much like the experience I had when I was 23 and I had to face my own death. And when I soberly sat down and began to ask questions and began to meditate on the process of my own death, because when I began that process, I was actually dying, I had to make friends with all that I came to know from my curiosity, from my open-heartedness to my authentic self. I had a lot that I had to make friends with, and I also had a lot that I had to choose to take responsibility for. And one of the key questions when I was in that situation when I was 23, I was too sick to work. I was barely able to get dressed every day, and I would just sort of sit and contemplate. And the question I would ask from my heart, and not from a place of fear, is how did I get here? How did I get here? I wanted that information. I wanted to have a review of the choices that I had made, if I had contributed to my being in the situation that I was in. And we have to do that now with climate change. We really do have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? And then be willing to listen to the answers and then to make new choices. So when I asked that question, how did I get here? The answers came. And in that instance, the answers were very much linked to my being too afraid to be my authentic self as I was intended to be by virtue of my genetics and my spiritual connection to all creation. And then, once I had that information, then I understood that there was a relationship between being friends with fear and standing in a place of love. Not bravado, not macho heroism, just a simple place of loving kindness, not perfect love, just enough love to meet the moment. And that became a really beautiful lifelong process for me. What do I bring to the moment? It doesn't have to be perfect love. It doesn't have to be a perfect me. But I need to have a willingness to see the truth, to feel the pain, to feel the fear, to ask the question, how did I get here? And to listen from my heart. So that's the journey that I was on very early in my life, and I learned a tremendous amount about how to be in relationship with fear, and also what does it feel like to choose to allow every part of me that I can hold the energy of love, simple love. Because it turned out that I had many difficult decisions to make during that time in my life. But being able to stand for myself in love for me and for my life and for my value as a human being and as a creative person, I had to learn to stand in that love alone.